If you didn't know, I record the videos at home beside a windowsill, so I apologize if you hear the rain. It's Vancouver. We just got past our snow. Now the forecast says like 8 or 9 straight days of 100% chance of rain. At least this will melt the snow, right? I, for one, have never been a big fan of snow, but you can comment down below what you think about that. So apologies if you do hear the rain. It's pretty loud, it's pretty heavy. I will be going to school later today, so I wanted to pump this out right now. Let's talk a little bit about playoff rentals, Jim Benning and the Vancouver Canucks, and all the like. Iain MacIntyre did a really great sit-down interview with Jim Benning that he published onto Sportsnet. I will leave a link in the description to that. Highly recommend you read it. It's really nice. They talk about the vindications of JT Miller. They talk about how good Quinn Hughes has been. They talk about quote-unquote dead money with guys like Sven Baertschi, and guys like JT Miller and Antoine Roussel are brought up too. But overall, there was one aspect of this interview that I wanted to talk about specifically. I'm not going to talk about the entire thing. I want you to read the article because it's a really good article. But there was something about this article that I thought was really interesting. And that was Jim Benning's philosophy on trading for a rental at the trade deadline in order to go for a playoff run. Now, this has been something that people have been talking about in my comments all over the place. I've seen this on Twitter, I've seen this on Reddit. People are talking about this in real life, people are talking about this on the radio. It's a very hot topic right now. The fact that the Canucks are doing so well, and they're so high up there in the standings, they're first in the Pacific at the time I'm recording this video. That could change because the Vegas Golden Knights play the Bruins. But right now the Canucks are set to making the playoffs, and the idea of a rental has brought itself into the limelight of this Vancouver media, and it's definitely been something that people have been bringing up. Do the Canucks go for a rental? Do they trade a future piece for a now piece? Do they trade parts of their future, whether that be picks or prospects, for a player on an expiring deal that will help the team out short term? Let's take a look at what Jim Benning has to say just about that. We're getting to a point, Jim Benning says, where we've drafted well and are developing players in the minors. We've got guys down there that we need to get them some games up here. Justin Bailey has 3 hat tricks. That's another story for another day, though. We'll make a video about that later. He's playing well, and it would be nice to have a look at him in the NHL. We've had some defensemen like Brogan Rafferty, who is first amongst all AHL defenders in points. He's a first-year player, by the way, and who is tied for 9th with Cole Lind in AHL scoring in general. Rafferty is just under a point per game. He's really gosh darn good, and he's had a good season, and we'd like to get a look at them. There are some players down there now ready to play NHL games. Now, before we proceed with this interview, let's just go over that idea. Are there NHL caliber players playing in Utica? Oh, hell yeah, there are. Nikolai Goldobin's over there, Reed Boucher's over there, Baertschi's over there. Then the guys that we were talking about in this article right here. Justin Bailey looks like a legitimate bottom 6 NHL forward. He's had 3 hat tricks. He's had 2 back-to-back hat tricks. Over the past span of time, Justin Bailey has pretty much been the Ovechkin of the AHL. And that's on a team that already has Reed Boucher. Brogan Rafferty, we already talked about it. He's 9th in AHL points, tied with Cole freaking Lind, and Rafferty is a defenseman. So that's definitely a really interesting idea to take a look at right here. That the Vancouver Canucks do indeed have NHL caliber talent just doing their thing in the AHL. Now, at the same time, Iain MacIntyre asks the question, you got some really good players in the AHL, they're NHL caliber players, and you want to give them some NHL games, how does that impact your trade deadline thinking? Jim Benning says, In other years, we were scrambling to find players. Now we've got guys who are waiting for their chance. That's exciting for us. Now that indeed is a big change of pace. In the previous years, I remember how interesting it was to have the guys like Megna and Chaput and Vey and all these guys just thrown into the lineup because we had nobody else. These guys weren't great. And those days are long gone. We have a full roster of NHL caliber players, and we have even more NHL caliber players down there in the AHL. Now, just because we have those players doesn't necessarily mean that a trade or something similar to that nature is out of the question. MacIntyre asks, does that mean you won't be looking for another top 6 winger, which you said in December you were targeting? Benning replies, I'm not saying that. I'm going to be in the marketplace, but I'm not necessarily going to sacrifice draft picks to make the team better for 2 months. I hope that we keep competing and win our share of games because I want to make the playoffs. But on rentals, I'm going to be careful that we're not going to be giving up high draft picks or the prospects we've worked to develop just for help in a couple of months. So there you have it. It's kind of the same tale that we've been hearing for the past little bit. No picks, no prospects, none of that stuff. We don't want to trade big assets of our future for help in the now. That's kind of how it is. That's kind of how Jim Benning has illustrated it. So let's talk about the options going forward with that. Now, when I take a look at that statement, I take a look at that idea, don't trade the prospects, don't trade the picks if we want to get rentals. The first thing that enters my mind is, okay, well, what exactly are we going to trade then? That's kind of how a trade rental works, right? I'm not necessarily too sure this team has the assets that we could comfortably say, yeah, we can trade that guy and get a nice rental piece back. Because we already have some other players who could potentially be top 6 wingers for us that are not really doing that. Ferland is on the IR. Berchi is in the AHL. If I were in this position to decide who plays on the team going forward, I would say, yeah, we kind of already have some players who you could dub our top 6 wingers. Does that mean we need to go out and get somebody else to add to the team that we already have? I'm not necessarily too sure. But if we did try to do that, I'm not too certain on who we would give up. Sven Berchi, albeit he is a good player, he's a guy who has had concussion history, is on a $3-point-something million deal, and isn't necessarily the most valuable. Louis Eriksson is a guy that we've talked about, but let's face it, that guy's going to play out the rest of his contract here. We have some other assets that honestly do seem a little bit more valuable, but could potentially be seen as guys that are supposed to help out the team down the line. What do we do with Goldolbin? That guy probably deserves an NHL shot. He's been dominating the AHL like he always has been. So when I take a look at this, I take a look at the market, I take a look at the teams that are willing to sell. And I take a look at what the Vancouver Canucks have, and I say, the only thing that the Canucks really have that would interest these teams is picks and prospects. Guys who are going to be good down the line. I'm not necessarily too sure where the flexibility is with that, but hey, I trust Jim Benning on being able to do this. Last year we traded Jonathan Dahlin for Linus Karlsson, who I still haven't made a video about because lack of exposure. We also traded Goodbranson for Pearson, which has turned out very, very nicely. So if we're able to make some more hockey trades like that, 1-for-1s, where we give up an asset that we're comfortable giving up, and we get an asset in return that the other team is comfortable in giving up, that we see value in, then that's really the best case scenario. I would love to see another Goodbranson for Pearson, another player that we have a positive response to getting rid of in exchange for a player that we welcome back. What exactly that is, I have no idea. But that's why I'm not the general manager. That's why I'm not scouting the market. I'm just sitting here talking about an article where he gets interviewed about the subject. So check out the article yourself. It's a very, very good read. Iain MacIntyre does a great job. We just explored a fraction of that article. So click on it, read it, and come back here, comment what you think about the trade deadline, the rentals, and all that, because Benning has said it. No high picks, no prospects. We don't want to do that for 2 months of a rental. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry, and bye.